The day my wife went into labor, I was holding a card for a private bank account my mother had set up with $3 million in it. I was going to give it to her as a push present, but as I reached the maternity ward, I heard laughter spilling from her room. Anna, do you remember that bet we made a year ago? It was her best friend, Chloe. If your first kid was Kyle's, you'd owe me 30 grand. To my shock, my wife laughed. That's right, which means you owe me 30 grand now, she said. This baby is Leo Vance's. Leo Vance was my wife and his ex-boyfriend. I clutched the thin plastic card in my hand. Inside that account was $3 million from my mother, a reward for Anna's hard work, a bonus for carrying on the Anderson family name. Just 10 minutes earlier, I'd been picturing the look on her face when she saw it. She'd be exhausted but fulfilled, like any new mother, and she'd whisper to me with a playful, teary voice, "Honey, it hurts so much, but I've never been happier." I'd even set the pin to her birthday in advance. From inside the room, Chloe's voice erupted again. "Anna, you can't lie just to get out of paying me $30,000. Hearing that, a wave of relief washed over me. Of course, Anna was just afraid of losing the bet. So, she was making a joke. She loved me too much. It couldn't possibly be anyone else's child. The day we got our marriage license, Anna had rested her forehead on my shoulder and whispered, "Kyle, I want us to have 2 kids. One that looks like you, and one that looks like me." But her next words pushed me into the abyss. "Chloe, have you forgotten?" Anna's voice was a low, conspiratorial hum. "My bachelorette party? Remember how Leo and I left early?" There was a pause. "We hooked up that night." In that instant, my world went dark. My wife had slept with her ex-boyfriend the night before our wedding. The sharp edge of the bank card finally broke the skin of my palm. A bead of blood welled up, dripping between my fingers and onto the polished hospital floor. I stared at the crimson dot and let out a choked laugh. So this is what pain sounds like, the soft pop of a bubble, the shattering of a marriage. "Sir, are you okay?" A passing nurse gave me a concerned look. I shook my head and slipped the card into the inner pocket of my suit jacket, right over my heart. It was beating violently, but the space around it felt cavernous, like something had just been carved out. I squeezed my eyes shut, hearing my own voice form the words, "You win, Anna." Chloe's voice was incredulous. "Anna, you're on another level. But even if you slept with Leo, that doesn't guarantee the baby is his, right?" Anna's reply was firm. The second I saw the baby, I knew. "He's Leo's," she said. "If you don't believe me, we can get a paternity test." "Kyle, what are you doing just standing there?" A cheerful voice startled me. I turned to see my mother striding down the hall, beaming. Behind her, our housekeeper was laden with gifts for Anna. "You must be ecstatic to finally be a father," my mother said. "Come on, let's go see the hope of the Anderson family." She grabbed my arm and pulled me into the room. "Oh, my dear Anna, you've been through so much." My mother rushed to her side, first tucking the blanket around her, then gently brushing the sweat-damp hair from her forehead, her touch as delicate as if she were handling priceless porcelain. "Quickly, bring everything in," she ordered the housekeeper. Ebony trays, gold-leafed gift boxes, entire baskets of exotic delicacies and rare supplements were piled onto the small table. On top of it all was a palm-sized mahogany box. My mother opened it herself, revealing a heavy, custom-made gold medallion nestled inside. "Solid gold, 4.5 ounces," she announced, lifting it to the light. The front has an engraving of a guardian angel, and the back is inscribed with the Anderson heir. My mother was smiling so broadly the corners of her eyes crinkled. "Just a little something from me, Anna, to bless my grandson with a long and healthy life." Anna's face was pale, but she managed a weak smile and whispered, "Thank you, Mom." I stood by the door, feeling like an irrelevant shadow. Anna's gaze shifted from the gold medallion to my face. "Kyle, why don't you come closer?" Her voice was soft, raspy from the delivery. "You look terrible. Are you not feeling well?" I walked forward. The sole of my shoe made a faint sticking sound as it passed over the drop of my blood on the floor. I smiled, a smile as cold and dull as the back of a knife. "Of course not." I took the bank card from my pocket, discreetly wiping the smear of blood with my thumb before holding it out to her. "The push present I promised you. Every last cent." The card glinted under the hospital lights. Anna stared at it for a second, then instinctively reached for it. As her fingertips brushed the edge, she seemed to feel the slight stickiness, and her eyes shot to mine. I was still smiling, my voice gentle enough to drip honey. "The pin is your birthday. Keep it safe." My mother, watching from the side, beamed. "Look at this happy couple. One knows how to give birth, and the other knows how to dote on her." She turned to instruct the baby nurse to make some herbal tea, missing the layer of ice forming in my eyes. Anna clutched the card in her palm, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "Kyle, are Are you sure you're okay? I'm fine. I tucked the blanket around her, mirroring my mother's earlier gesture, but my touch was as cold as iron. You just gave birth. Don't talk. Save your strength. I leaned in closer and added in a whisper only she could hear. Save your strength. You'll need it for the main event. Anna's pupils contracted violently. I straightened up, gave her a slight raise of my eyebrows, and turned toward the bassinet. Through the clear acrylic, the tiny boy who had just entered the world was sleeping, his fists clenched. I extended my index finger, hovering it just over his brow. A gold medallion for a long life. I mouthed the words silently. It can lock in a life, but it can't lock away a debt. My mother called from behind me. Kyle, come on, hold your son. I pulled my hand back, wiping my palm on the seam of my slacks, as if trying to clean something foul from my skin. No rush, I said, turning back to Anna with a smile as bright as a spring morning. We have a long life ahead of us. I'll have plenty of time to hold him. I leaned against the grimy wall of the fire escape, an unlit cigarette between my fingers, but a fire was raging in my ears through my earbuds. Chloe, keep it down. The baby nurse is in the room. Anna's voice, still raspy from childbirth, was nonetheless soft and sweet. Chloe lowered her voice on the other end. Anna, what are you thinking? The look on Kyle's face today was like he'd swallowed a mouthful of glass. Aren't you scared he's actually going to check? Anna let out a soft, long laugh. Scared of what? He loves me. She paused, as if stating the most obvious fact in the world. He loves me so much that when I casually mentioned I like the old maples in Lincoln Park, he spent a fortune to have mature trees transplanted to our yard overnight. He won't have the heart to get angry over a little thing like this. I heard the rustle of fabric through the earbuds. She must have been shifting in bed. Besides, her voice grew quieter but brighter, like a diamond scratching across glass in the dead of night. You saw it yourself? The baby looks just like Leo. Those eyes, the bridge of his nose, the curve of his chin. Kyle will only see it and feel proud. He'll go to bed smiling, thinking his son is so handsome. Chloe gasped. But what if he demands a paternity test? Let him. Anna's laugh was a vibration in her chest, sending a crackle like static through the connection. If it comes to that, I'll just burst into tears and say, you don't trust me? Then I'll shove the baby into his arms. He'll be overwhelmed with guilt and probably end up comforting me. Aren't you afraid of pushing it too far? I can't. Anna's voice turned cold, like water seeping from beneath a sheet of ice. Leo's genes are objectively superior to Kyle's. An IQ of 145, a full ride to an Ivy League. He's even 2 inches taller. I'm improving the Anderson family stock. You should be grateful to me. Grateful to me. The 2 words hammered into my temples like nails. I ripped the earbuds out, my knuckles white from clenching my fist. So that's all my love was to her. A piece of clay she could mold and discard at will. The marriage I held so preciously in my hands was nothing more than a shrewd investment in superior genes. I looked down and crushed the unlit cigarette, the tobacco spilling onto the concrete like a snuffed-out fuse. Through the dangling earbud, the conversation continued. So, does Leo know the baby is his? Not yet. Anna yawned, her voice lazy. I'll wait for the 1-month party. I'll take the baby to him then and say, look, your masterpiece. A guy like him, no matter how cold he acts, will soften at the sight of his own flesh and blood. You're insane. Insane. Anna chuckled softly, like she was cooing at a baby. Chloe, my dear, this is called a winner-take-all. The call ended. The hallway fell silent. I stood up straight, winding the earphone cord around my wrist, tighter and tighter, until it left a raw, purple mark. The mark felt like a brand-new leash. I had once been willing to be her loyal dog. Now, I was the one holding the rope. I moved my lips without a sound. The game is on, Anna. Then I turned and walked toward the doctor's lounge at the end of the hall. Inside, an expedited paternity test request form was waiting for my signature. The report was a single, thin sheet of paper, but it felt as heavy as lead. I held it in the underground parking garage, finishing my 3rd cigarette. The ash fell onto the bolded words, biological father excluded, like dust settling on a coffin. But I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just folded the report into a neat square and tucked it into the inner pocket of my suit jacket. The space over my heart now held knife. Who would I aim at first? Not Anna. She was too arrogant, too convinced that my love for her was so absolute I could swallow even this betrayal. So I needed her to watch, helpless, as the people closest to her were dragged into the abyss one by one. The first would be her brother, Justin. 3 months ago, Anna, her belly swollen, had asked me in that soft voice of hers, Kyle, honey, can you get Justin a job in the finance department? He just graduated. He needs someone to show him the ropes. She'd used the phrase, show him the ropes, not look out for him. At the time, I'd laughed and said, my wife's brother is my brother. And so, Justin had bypassed the exams and the interviews, landing a seat in the most critical division of my company, capital funds. Now it was time for him to pay his dues. Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp, the audit department launched a surprise inspection of finance. The team was led by the head of risk management I'd poached from a top firm in New York, a woman with a reputation for being the executioner. Justin Hayes, she said, rapping her knuckles on his cubicle wall. Last Wednesday, there was a corporate payment of $3 million. Your signature is on the wire, but the file is missing the contract, the proof of delivery, and the invoice is a photocopy. We need you to come with us. The color drained from Justin's face. He knew exactly what that payment was for. His girlfriend had wanted to put a down payment on a condo in a good school district and had told him to just move the money for now and that they'd sort out the paperwork later. By noon, the auditors had confiscated Justin's computer, phone, and every flash drive. At 3 p.m., an email went out from HR. All duties suspended pending internal investigation. I sat in my office, listening to my assistant's live updates. Justin is in the break room on the phone with Anna. He's a complete mess, sobbing. And Anna, sounds like she threw her phone. I smiled and tossed my pen onto the desk. This was only the beginning. That evening, the Hayes household imploded. Anna's father called me, his voice tight with anger. Kyle, you're the one who got Justin the job. Now that there's trouble, you have to fix it. I adopted a troubled tone. Dad, the audit department is independent. If I interfere, it will just make things look worse. Don't worry, as long as Justin didn't actually steal anything, he'll get a slap on the wrist at most. I could immediately hear Anna's mother shrieking in the background. Didn't steal? They suspend you if you didn't steal? That worthless daughter of mine. She insisted her brother go work for the Andersons. Now look, she's ruined him. I listened quietly, picturing the look on Anna's face. She would be clutching her phone, knuckles white, while trying to placate her mother. Mom, calm down, Kyle will handle it. But she had no idea that as soon as I hung up, I sent a text to my head of risk management. Keep digging. Go deeper. I want every expense report, every payment, every private transfer he's made in the last 3 years. Don't miss a single one. After sending it, I opened a drawer and took out another file, the bank statements for a shell corporation registered under Anna's name. Last year, she had told me she was bored during the pregnancy and wanted to learn about investing, so I had set it up for her. 3 months ago, she had transferred $2 million from that account. The recipient, Leo Vance. I printed the statement and placed it on top of the paternity test. One was a death sentence for our bloodline, the other a death by 1,000 cuts for our marriage. Now, all that was left was the final blow, and I was going to make Anna hand me the knife herself. Through the security feed from the maternity ward, I watched Anna leisurely sipping a bowl of chicken soup. Then, her mother burst into the room like a hurricane. You still have the nerve to drink soup. She grabbed Anna's collar, half lifting, half dragging her out of the hospital bed. Crack! The sound of the slap was so sharp it made the camera's microphone hiss with static. Anna's head snapped to the side, 5 red fingerprints instantly blooming on her pale cheek. Mom, what are you doing? What am I doing? Why did you convince your brother to go steal money from Kyle's company? Her mother struck her again, this time with her full force. Anna staggered back, the small of her back hitting the edge of the bed frame, causing her to double over in pain. Her father was right behind, clutching a stack of printed audit reports, which he flung into Anna's face. $3 million. How long has your brother been out of college? You think he would have the guts to touch that kind of money if you weren't backing him up? The sharp edges of the paper left a thin red line on Anna's jaw. She raised a hand to shield herself, her voice trembling. Justin moved it himself. He said his girlfriend wanted to buy a house. Kyle won't press charges. Won't press charges? Her father sneered. He's got the entire audit department crawling all over it. He's one step away from calling the cops. Why should he let us off the hook if you don't beg him? Her mother lunged to hit her again, but the baby nurse frantically intervened. Mrs. Hayes, she just gave birth, you can't. Get out of my way. The older woman shoved the nurse aside and pointed a finger in Anna's face. You call your husband right now. You get on your knees and beg him to make this go away. If your brother goes to prison, I'll swear I never had a daughter. In a blind spot of the camera, I saw Anna's hand clutching the bedsheet, shaking. She took a deep breath and dialed my number. It rang once, twice. I let it go to the 5th ring before answering. Kyle. Her voice was a strained whisper, choked with a sob I'd never heard before. Can you come to the hospital? I miss you. I glanced at my watch. 9:17 p.m. I chuckled, my voice oozing a practiced gentleness. Anna, honey, I just got out of a meeting. Suddenly, her mother's shriek tore through the phone. Tell him to get over here now. Tell him his brother-in-law's life is in his hands. That was followed by her father's roar. Give me the phone. Kyle Anderson, if you still consider us family, you will call off the audit immediately. If you don't, the Hayes family is done with you. I covered the microphone and gave my assistant a silencing gesture. Then I uncovered it, my voice dropping 10 degrees. Dad, Mom, the audit was a board decision. My hands are tied. Before I could finish, Anna cut me off, her voice raw. So you can't just use your own money to fill the gap and make it all go away? Anna, I sighed, injecting the perfect amount of exhaustion into my voice. The company's cash flow is a mess right now. Several projects went south at once. That story my mother told you. Sigh, that was her retirement fund, her nest egg. If I take money from that, the shock might give her a heart attack. The other end of the line went dead silent, except for Anna's ragged breathing. I delivered the final cut. But, since it's an emergency for your family, why don't you use the push present my mother gave you? I believe it was exactly $3 million, wasn't it? $3 million? At the mention of the number, Anna's parents lost their minds. Her mother's voice was like a string of firecrackers exploding, so loud it seemed to shake the light fixtures in the room. She lunged at the hospital bed, her bony fingers clawing at Anna's collar like hooks. The money. Where's the card? Anna, still dazed, with tear tracks drying on her face, instinctively covered her belly. Mom, that's Kyle's gift to me. Bullshit. Your brother is about to go to jail, and you're trying to hide your private stash? Her mother slapped her again, so hard this time that Anna's head whipped to the side. An earring flew off and hit the wall with a soft click. Her father stood by, his face a grim mask, tapping his cane on the floor like a metronome counting down to 0. He suddenly reached out and tore open the collar of Anna's pajamas. Search her. At his command, her mother fell upon her like a starving wolf, ripping at her clothes, her fingers scrabbling everywhere. The baby nurse cowered in a corner. The baby, startled by the commotion, began to wail from its bassinet. Anna struggled, her nails scratching 3 bloody lines on her mother's hand. Mom, are you crazy? This is a hospital. So what if it's a hospital? If your brother goes to jail, I'll kill myself right in front of you. Her mother's hand found Anna's pajama pocket. Her eyes lit up, and she pulled out a set of keys and a folded tissue. She shook the tissue out, empty, then bent down to search the mattress. Found it. Her mother's voice sliced through the air like a dull knife. She yanked the thin bank card from between the mattress and the box spring. Anna lunged for it, but her father backhanded her across the face, sending her crashing back onto the bed. Her head hit the metal bed rail with a sickening thud. Mom, that was from Kyle for me. Shut up. Her mother struck her twice more, the slaps so hard Anna's vision blurred. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. I watched the whole ugly drama unfold. Her mother clutched the card like a holy relic and rushed to my office. She stumbled up to me, her thin fingers digging into my wrist, nails nearly breaking the skin. Kyle, here's the card. Just save Justin. Her voice was shaking, her eyes shot with blood. I looked down at the card. It was now smeared with Anna's tears and her mother's sweat, feeling like a searing brand. I took it, my fingertips brushing over its surface. Don't worry, Mom, I said softly, as if calming a frightened child. I'll have him drop the case right now. Her mother's legs gave out, and she nearly collapsed. I steadied her, then nodded to my assistant at the end of the hall. He immediately made a call. 5 minutes later, Justin's number flashed on Mrs. Hayes' phone. Mom, the auditors left. They said I'm cleared. After hearing that, her mother went limp, as if her bones had dissolved. She slumped onto a bench in the hallway and began to wail. Anna had originally called, ready to blame me for everything, but when I told her I was preparing a $10 million gift for her at the baby's 1-month party, she decided to let it all go. Soon, the day of the party arrived. The entire estate was ablaze with light. 120 invitations engraved with gold leaf had been sent out, but twice that number of guests showed up. Titans of industry, political figures, media personalities, even some reclusive old family friends. They all came. The christening of the first grandson of the Anderson generation, they all said, had to be an event worthy of the Anderson heir. My mother, dressed in a magnificent crimson gown, her hair perfectly styled, was greeting guests at the door. I stood beside her, my suit immaculate, my smile warm, the very picture of a happy father. Leaning on the arm of the baby nurse, Anna descended the grand staircase. Her eyes were dazzlingly bright, her gaze cutting through the crowd to land directly on the velvet box in my mother's hands. That box, she thought, held her prize. I raised my glass to her in a silent toast. She smiled back, the corners of her eyes crinkling, just as sweet as on our wedding night. The party began. I took her hand and led her to the center of the grand hall. The orchestra quieted, and the guests formed a circle around us. My mother stepped forward with the box, smiling from ear to ear. Today is a joyous day for the Anderson family. On the day of my grandson's christening, his grandmother doesn't have much to offer. She lifted the lid, revealing a sleek black credit card. $10 million for his education fund when he turns 18. The pin is Anna's birthday. Thunderous applause erupted. Anna's eyes welled with tears, and she reached for the box. But I was faster. I closed the lid with a snap. Wait! My voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the entire hall. I reached into the inner pocket of my suit and pulled out the paternity test. The single sheet of paper was folded into a small, worn square. I looked up at Anna. Anna, I have a gift for you. It's more precious than $10 million. In front of everyone, I slowly unfolded the paper. Biological father excluded. The world went silent. Anna's smile froze on her face. A placid lake suddenly turned to ice. The box slipped from my mother's hands and crashed to the marble floor. The black card skittered out and came to a stop at Anna's feet. I heard my own voice, cold and clear. Anna, didn't you say the baby looking like Leo was your contribution to improving the family stock? My eyes drilled into hers. In that case, shouldn't I be thanking Leo Vance for this $10 million gift? Anna's lips trembled, her face completely drained of color. She instinctively reached for my sleeve, her fingertips like ice. Kyle, I can explain. I took a half step back, avoiding her touch. Explain what? Explain how you couldn't resist one last night with your ex before our wedding? Or explain how you plan to take the baby to Leo Vance after this party and tell him, look at your masterpiece? With every word, her face grew paler. Finally, I placed the report gently in her palm. You win, Anna, I said. Unfortunately, this isn't the prize you were hoping for. I turned to the head of our security. Show our guests out. The crowd began to stir, camera flashes flickering like lightning. Anna stood frozen, a marionette with its strings cut, clutching that piece of paper, her knuckles bone white. She suddenly looked up, her voice a raw rasp. Kyle, you knew all along, didn't you? I paused but didn't turn around. Yes. From the moment you overheard that bet, I knew. I added one last thing. The game is over, Anna. Anna collapsed next to the shattered pieces of the gift box, blood trickling from her lips. Her ears were filled with the sound of her father's roars, her mother's shrieks, and her brother's pathetic sobs. You worthless bitch! Her mother tore at her hair, her nails carving bloody furrows down her face. $10 million. Gone just like that. Justin grabbed her by the collar. Sis, beg him. Make him forgive you. Her father's cane rose and fell, crashing down on her shoulder blade with a sickening crack. Anna screamed, slumping to the floor like a rag doll. She crawled toward me, her fingers grabbing the cuff of my pants, her nails caked with blood. Kyle, I'm so sorry, I was wrong. For the baby's sake. I looked down at the face I once adored, now swollen and bruised. The baby? I sneered, crouching to grip her chin and force her to look at me. You mean Leo Vance's masterpiece? I straightened up. The Andersons don't raise other men's bastards. Our head of staff handed me a folder. 3 pages, single-spaced. Anna, I said, my voice quiet but carrying through the now emptying hall, this is a list of everything my family has given yours since we started dating. The riverfront penthouse downtown, registered in your name. The complete collection of Hermes rare leather bags. 27 of them. The Cartier high jewelry. A new piece every month from our engagement until you got pregnant. And that pink Rolls Royce you liked, the one I had air freighted from the UK overnight. Including the gifts for your parents and brother, the total comes to over $30 million. With every item I listed, Anna's face lost another shade of color. Her parents, however, scrambled for the list like it was a lifeline. Kyle, we were family. We can talk about this. Her father bowed, his smile more painful than a grimace. Just let Anna keep these things as compensation for her wasted youth. Wasted youth? I laughed, then pointed at her brother. I still haven't reported the $3 million Justin embezzled. My voice dropped. You have 2 options. You return every single item on this list within 3 days. Or, I pulled out my phone, the screen already on the 911 dialing page. I can call a car to come pick him up right now. Her mother dropped to her knees, clutching my leg and howling. Kyle, you can't be so cruel. Anna just gave birth. You'll kill her. I looked down at her tear-streaked face and remembered our wedding day, when she had knelt before my mother and said, "We know our daughter is in good hands with you." Anna tried to speak up. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't pushed me, I never would have." Crack. Her father's backhand sent her spinning. "You still dare to talk back?" The scene devolved into chaos. The four of them were a tangle of flailing limbs and furious screams, their fight a grotesque backdrop to the sound of the crying baby. I turned to the head of security. "Get them all out of here." My voice was flat. "For every item missing from that list, they will pay back 10 times its market value. If they can't pay, they can all share a prison cell." He nodded and motioned for his men to drag the entire Hayes family from my home. My assistant was efficient. By the next day, he had a full dossier on Leo Vance. His hands were trembling when he handed me the manila envelope. "Sir, it's all in here." I opened it. The first photo was from a wedding. A lawn, a white dress, a champagne tower. Leo had his arm around his new bride's waist, his smile more genuine than in any photo I'd ever seen of him with Anna. The second document was a prenatal report. The bride was 12 weeks pregnant. Her due date was only 20 days after Anna's. It seemed Leo had gotten married behind Anna's back. This would be my final strike. I closed the folder and lit a cigarette, not smoking it, just watching it burn down to the filter. Then I scanned every document, attached them to an email, and sent it to Anna. The subject line was just 2 words: "Your surprise." At 3:17 a.m., my phone began to vibrate violently. 37 missed calls, all from Anna. On the 38th, I answered. "Kyle." Her voice sounded like it had been scraped raw with sandpaper. "You're lying." "Right." In the background, I could hear a baby's piercing cries and the sound of running water. "Anna," I said softly, "do you really think I enjoy lying as much as you do?" I heard a sudden splash, and then the line went quiet. I didn't think much of it and hung up. At 4 a.m., as a torrential rain began to fall, Anna was kneeling outside my front gate. Her silk nightgown was soaked through, clinging to her body like a second skin. In her hand, she clutched the solid gold medallion. She looked up, her voice barely a whisper against the storm. "I got rid of him." I stared down at her, saying nothing. Her knuckles were white, the edges of the gold medallion digging into her palm, blood mixing with the rainwater that streamed down her arm. I watched him sink. He didn't even make a splash. Still, I didn't move. I thought of 3 months ago, when she had curled up against me and said she wanted to name our son Cole. "A mix of Kyle and Anna," she'd said. Her eyes had been as bright as a galaxy then. Now, they were just pools of stagnant water. "Kyle," she crawled forward, her knees scraping against the rough concrete. "Let's start over. Please? I'll give you a child. A real child that's yours." She reached for my pants leg. I stepped back out of her reach. She fell forward, her forehead hitting the stone step with a dull thud. She didn't seem to feel the pain, just looked up at me with a desperate, fixed stare. "You want a baby, didn't you? I can give you one. I'll keep having them until you're happy." I crouched down, grabbing her chin and forcing her to meet my gaze. "Anna," my voice was soft, but it cut through the rain. "You didn't get rid of a baby. You got rid of the last shred of your humanity." My grip tightened. "But I'll give you one last chance. Let's make a bet. If you win, I'll forgive you." A flicker of light appeared in her dead eyes. "Yes, anything. If you'll forgive me, I'll bet anything." "Then let's bet on whether the child you had with Leo Vance is dead." Anna knelt at my feet, wet hair plastered to her face, but a slow, horrifying smile spread across her lips. It was a grotesque crack in a porcelain mask. "Kyle," she said, her voice unervingly cheerful, "we don't need a bet. I've already won." She held up 2 fingers in a V for victory. I saw him with my own eyes. He went under. The river took him. She even let out a small yawn, as if she had just finished watching a boring movie. "Are you sure?" "Positive." She nodded, a sickly gleam in her eyes. "I won. You have to forgive me." Before the words had fully left her mouth, the iron gate behind me creaked open. One of my security guards walked out, holding a small, bundled blanket. The baby who was supposed to be dead was right there, in his arms. "Sir, we found him snagged at the downstream floodgate." The guard's voice was steady. He swallowed some water, but they were able to revive him. The smile on Anna's face shattered. She froze, her pupils shrinking to pinpricks, like a cat caught in a spotlight. "No, that's impossible," she whispered, her nails digging into her own thighs. "I made sure." "You made sure of what?" I took the bundle from the guard, my movements awkward but firm. "That you want to try again?" The cold air must have startled the baby. His tiny mouth opened in a silent cry before letting out a weak whimper. The sound was like a silver needle, piercing directly into Anna's eardrums. She clapped her hands over her ears, her knuckles white. Make him stop. Make him. Don't worry. He won't be bothering you again. I turned and handed the baby to a woman from social services who had been waiting silently. Leave the name blank. On the file, list the mother as Anna Hayes. The father is unknown. I paused, then added, when he turns 18, you can tell him the truth, how his mother betrayed her husband for a bet and then tried to discard him. A raw, inhuman scream tore from Anna's throat. She lunged for the baby. A guard stepped in her way, and she slammed into his arm as if it were a brick wall, rebounding onto the ground. The rough steps scraped her knees raw, but she didn't notice the pain, scrambling toward me. Kyle, I was wrong. Leave him with me. I'll raise him. I'll raise him, I promise. Her voice was broken, each word flecked with desperation. I gestured with my hand, and the social worker quickly carried the baby through the rain and into a black SUV. The headlights flashed on, illuminating Anna's twisted shadow, stretching it long and thin across the road like an unbreakable chain. The engine rumbled to life, a quiet sigh before it disappeared into the storm. I sneered down at her. You don't want to raise him. You just can't stand the thought of him existing in this world, a constant reminder of how you betrayed me, and how Leo Vance betrayed you. I leaned closer. I want you to live with that pain for the rest of your life. Anna stared blankly in the direction the SUV had gone, and then she began to laugh. A low, gurgling sound that grew higher and sharper until it became a full-blown, hysterical howl. She staggered to her feet and, barefoot, ran into the middle of the street, her hair flying behind her like a tattered black flag. A guard started to go after her, but I held up a hand to stop him. Let her go. She ran, stumbling and clumsy, as if chased by unseen demons. The rain-slicked asphalt reflected the streetlights, slicing her shadow into pieces. In the distance, a car horn blared, sharp, frantic, a final, mocking laugh from fate. The shriek of tires tore through the pre-dawn silence, followed by a dull, sickening impact. For 3 seconds, the world was quiet. Then came the soft thud of something heavy hitting the pavement. When the sun broke through the clouds, the police came to my door. A young officer showed me a photo from the scene. Anna was curled on the crosswalk. Her white nightgown stained a dark crimson. Clutched tightly in her arms was the empty, custom-made mahogany box. There was a faint smile on her lips, as if in her final moment, she was still certain of one thing. I won. The officer asked if I had seen her last night. I nodded. She came by, but I sent her away. He nodded, closing his notebook. As he was leaving, he turned back. By the way, the traffic camera picked up her last words. It sounded like she was saying, I'm sorry, my baby. Does that mean anything to you? It doesn't matter anymore, I said. Do her parents know? The officer told me that Mr. and Mrs. Hayes had refused to identify or claim the body. They said it was as if they never had a daughter.